Uh-oh. Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
You are now listening to the Unscripted Ohio podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Grove and in part by JFQ Lending. All your home purchase and refinance needs should be handled by a Buckeye. You'll never pay for your appraisal with these guys. Licensed in 33 states and more on the way. Check them out at jfqlending.com. For the latest news, notes, analysis, and discussion, check us out on BuckeyeGrove.com and follow us on Twitter at UnscriptedOhio1. Now, broadcasting from Podcast Central, a place that is not his mother's basement.
Hey, Ma! Can we get some meatloaf?
We promise. Here's your host, Kyle Lamb.
Hey, Ma! The meatloaf!
A pleasant Monday. Welcome back to the Unscripted Ohio podcast. I am your glorified host, Kyle Lamb. And at this rate, I may not even be that much for much longer because I've had an interesting week. Anyhow, Unscripted Ohio is brought to you by Buckeye Grove, our title sponsor, JFQ Lending, and we are also supported by GoBus. Ride to over 40 stops across Ohio, connecting rural communities to Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. Get to Ohio State games with GoBus and bring comfort back to traveling. Make sure you check them out on ridegobus.com or give them a ring, 888-95-GO-BUS. Speaking of giving a ring, I rung up Corey Thompson to be my glorified co-host today. Corey, I see that you made it back to Florida. Actually, I know you made it back to Florida because we had a little debate over the weekend, which we'll get into that in a few minutes. But you did make it back to Florida. How was your trip up here to Ohio?
The trip itself, before up and back, it was horrible. But the actual experience was amazing. I love being up there. But yeah, I don't want to drive 15 hours anymore. One way, by the way, that wasn't total. That's one way. And it was pretty awful because, honest to God, driving is boring, and 15 hours of it makes it worse.
Well, if we had known what we know now, we would have had you bring up a quarterback from the state of Florida with you because Ohio State's going to have to scour the countryside far and wide for another quarterback. But we'll get into that in a second. I understand you have an announcement that you wanted to make, a personal announcement.
That's right. Folks, I know these are trying times, trying political times, and we don't get to politics much on this network, but I want to announce that I'm running for president of the United States of America. I'm constitutionally old enough to do so now. I'm 35. And I have three top priorities that I want everybody to unify around. One, I'm getting rid of Pete's Candy. It's got to end. This has just got to stop. I can't look at it every time I go into a store. It's awful. Nobody likes it. And if you do say you like it, I think you're lying. It's terrible. Number two, pineapple on pizza. That's got to go. Another thing that people do not like. It's just time to end it. But the third priority is a positive. I know there's two negatives. Third priority is a positive. I want to bring back EA Sports NCAA football video game for all consoles. You're welcome, America.
Yeah, I think everybody would go along with most of those things. I do not understand pineapple on pizza. I love pineapple. I love pizza. But those two things just don't go together. Pineapple and pizza should be separate. They should be apart. They should be enjoyed separately. I don't understand trying to make those two work. That's like Tristan Thompson and Khloe Kardashian. Those two things just don't go together. They're great separately, for what they do. Khloe being a tramp and Tristan being a hell of a rebounder, but they just were not a match made in heaven.
No, and they caused the Cavs to single-handedly lose the finals. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, I called her a tramp, but I didn't even get into the fact that she's a big jinx. How's your Easter Sunday been?
It's been good, actually. I got to eat all my favorite foods, not pineapple and pizza, but all my favorite. I agree, pineapple alone great, pizza alone great, but not together. But no, all my favorite foods. Got to relax. That's just the best time for holidays. I work all the time. If I get a day off to relax, I'm happy. I don't care what the occasion is. Other than that, I hope everybody out there's had a blessed Easter, and hope everybody got to celebrate with their families and friends and got to have a good time.
Well, I have not had a blessed Easter, and I should be prioritizing here. This goes to show that I'm not my priorities are out of whack, but I've been a little bit upset because my internet has been down since Friday. And apparently, my modem just decided to crap out. So I've been waiting on a Spectrum technician, and they could not get here over the weekend, partially because of the holiday. So I have to go without internet until Monday, which means Sunday night I'm missing Game of Thrones unless I decide to fire up my hotspot on my phone, which I could do, but I could probably run 2 gigabytes of data, and I only have like a 6 gigabyte plan. So that's not exactly working. And because I'm a cord cutter, I don't have cable any longer, so I've been missing all my hockey and everything I would have been watching over the weekend. So I've been kind of bored at home, to be honest with you.
It's amazing how much we depend on the internet these days for our everyday lives. It's not a cut down because it's everybody, and it's just true of everybody unless you live in Montana in the mountains, or not the mountains, but in these vast open fields or whatever you do up there, and you just don't want to have any connection to the outside world or whatever. But yeah, the 98% of us in America, if you don't have internet, you don't have entertainment anymore.
I feel like I need to go into detox without it. It's like, stick a needle in my veins or something. I need some shot of adrenaline. I don't know what to do without it. I've tried. I got, for my birthday a couple of weeks ago, my family, my mother and sister went in and got me the Harry Potter series, and I split it with them 3 ways. Because I had never read the Harry Potter book. So this has actually given me a good chance to really start reading, which I have not done. They've been sitting around collecting dust for the last couple of weeks. But I never read the Harry Potter books, so I'm getting into them now, and I've been taking advantage of my not having internet for the past few days.
Yeah, I don't read either. It makes me sleepy. I get it.
So, hey, Corey, I got a question for you. There is no right or wrong answer, but if you get it wrong, I'm going to have to take you outside and plug you. Did Ryan Day make a mistake taking Justin Fields?
No, he did not.
Well, you got the right answer. I told you there was no right or wrong answer, but there was only one answer, and you got it right. So I'm not going to have to plug you. It's crazy to me that there are people out there that are suggesting Ryan Day mishandled this, and they're not outright. And to be fair, I have not seen anybody, at least on my timeline, have not seen anybody outright say that Ohio State made a mistake taking Justin Fields. But if you are out there saying Ryan Day mishandled it, I would like to know how he could have handled it better. Because to me, when you say something like that, the only answer would be that you think Ryan Day should not have taken Justin Fields. Otherwise, I'm not sure how he could have handled it better. Because people have to remember here, and of course we're talking about the Matthew Baldwin transfer. He's announcing that he's leaving. He's going into the transfer portal. May God bless him, and hopefully he doesn't get stuck in that black hole. Maybe the one that they just found, the pictures that we saw last week of the black hole, maybe he's not going to be stuck in that, hopefully. But, with Baldwin gone, we knew.
Is that where the portal goes?
Who knows? I've never been in the portal, and I've never come out the other side of the portal, so I don't know. I'm just taking a wild stab. That's where it leads. But people have to remember that, even if Justin Fields had not gone to Ohio State, either Tate Martell or Matthew Baldwin were going to become the starting quarterback. One of those two, especially Tate, probably would have transferred anyhow if they had lost the job either in the spring or fall. And so I'm not getting where people are coming from here, critiquing, taking Justin Fields as the reason that the Ohio State messed this up, if that's where people are at, because a quarterback would have left anyhow. Probably 2 quarterbacks would have left anyhow. So I'm not really sure that it really matters. It just, they knew the risk when they took Justin Fields, and they were willing to take the risk, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is not depth, even though depth is important. The most important thing is not the depth itself. It's who's your starting quarterback. And I don't think out of the 3, anybody would have answered any differently than saying, Justin Fields. I assume you agree with that?
Out of the 3, and I'm not knocking 2 of them, but Justin Fields is clearly the most talented. I don't know if he'll end up being the best of the 3. I feel he will, but he's look, gosh, he's got a cannon arm. He can run like Braxton Miller almost. If he can't run like Braxton, he's a notch below. He's got all the talent in the world. There's no real physical limitations, and you have Ryan Day and Yurcich coaching him. I mean, some of the top QB coaches in the country, and he's young, and you get 2 years of him at least. Look, I don't. Yeah, I think what your scenario is 100. Just what we've learned about Baldwin, what we know about Tate is 100% correct. That one of them would have left anyway, and we're stuck with either Tate or just Baldwin. And we don't have a Justin Fields.
And, look, we can sit here and we could debate, and like you and I did, we could debate the reasons that Matthew Baldwin is leaving. At the end of the day, it's not important. And because whether he's leaving or not, people got to remember, I've seen some references to Urban Meyer not talking him into, or Urban Meyer would have talked him into staying, or, Urban Meyer would have done this, Urban Meyer would have done that. People have to remember the rules are different now. We're living in a new era of NCAA big time college football, because with the transfer portal now, you guys can go in, they can announce they're transferring, they can talk to other schools, and they don't have their old schools dictating who they can speak with. That's one of the changes because of the portal. It used to be you'd have to go to your institution. If Matthew Baldwin a couple years ago wanted to transfer from a place like Ohio State, and I know he was in high school, but just hypothetically, if he were around Ohio State a few years ago, he would have had to go to the Ohio State athletic department and got permission from Ohio State to talk to other schools, and they would have had to give permission, and they could have said, well, we don't want you talking to them or this team or that coach or this coach. They had all the cards and all the momentum, and you had to sit out if you were going to transfer absent extraordinary circumstances that would have dictated a waiver. But now the rules have changed. The waiver process, by the way, the actual waiver rules have not changed. What's interesting about this, but the NCAA is basically now apparently just decided, hey, we're just going to start granting waivers, even though the rules say it's only for these limited number of circumstances, but we don't care anymore. We're just going to say, rubber stamp, waiver for you, like Oprah handing out cars on her television show. And that combined with the transfer portal and not having to get permission at who you can speak with, this is a new era. Clemson has lost 3 quarterbacks in the past year. Georgia has lost 2 quarterbacks in the past year. Alabama has lost Jalen Hurts in the past year. This is not the same, environment that it was even 3 years ago.
Yeah, people are overreacting to the Ryan Day portion of it. You're right. I mean, I said to a friend yesterday or the day before, I bet Ryan Day, since Urban Meyer's still at the campus, probably went down to the office and said, I bet you're glad you didn't have to deal with this. These kinds of rules. Because look, I don't think I could argue, if we're going to get into why Tate and Baldwin left. Tate arguably, not just because of Fields, but I think if you go by what his mother's saying, maybe his family doesn't feel Ohio State was completely honest with him. I personally think they're probably just misreading the situation. And then Baldwin has it, like he said in his note, he says, I'm more than a football player, I'm more than a quarterback. And so there's obviously things outside of football at play and why he left. So say Tate becomes a starter, then Baldwin still probably leaves for those same reasons. Say Baldwin becomes a starter, there's no guarantee he even takes the job. It depends on how much he values those other things. And if he beats out Tate, do you think Tate's sticking around? No, we might have been left with 0 quarterbacks. So except for Chug, for the Chug fan club out there. But so absolutely, going back to the original point, I know I circled back around, but there is no other conclusion to come to than taking Fields was the right choice.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I mean, you said it. There are people out there saying, well, maybe Baldwin is leaving for other reasons, but had he been named the starter, he wouldn't have left. And look, like I told you in our conversation, because we debated this, you guys actually should have seen the debate that Corey and I had. We were getting into it pretty good. I mean, I was throwing some jabs. You were throwing some jabs.
It was like the rabbit and duck debate on How I Met Your Mother.
That's a good reference. I haven't seen How I Met Your Mother in a long time. Yeah, we were pretty heated. It was, that just goes to show. I mean, even, everybody has, a firm stance on this, and we can really not see eye to eye on everything. This was a knockdown duel. We went, I would say 9 rounds. I think that was. But the thing is, it's like we could argue whether or not he would have stayed if he got the starter. The fact is, we just don't know. I don't want to be one of those people saying, well, there's no way, he was gone regardless. All I can tell you is I do know there are some reasons other than football that he's leaving. Now, other people have said, yeah, well, maybe that's true, but if he were the starting quarterback, he wouldn't leave. Only Matthew knows that, and I'm not saying that can't be true, but people would have to admit that it is different when you're feeling homesick or you're just not feeling the environment, you're not feeling the campus, the size, all these other things. It's a lot different staying there when you have something to stay for as opposed to when you don't. I've had jobs that I didn't like, but if somebody told me, well, you're going to get a raise and a promotion, I might not like the job, but that's a little bit more of an incentive to stay as opposed to just continuing to make the same amount that I'm making and, having to do the same things for the same work and the same title. And that's what I would liken this to. It's like, yeah, it's possible he would have stayed if he were the starter, but that's a little bit different. That's a reason to stay. That might not be the reason you're leaving, but that's an incentive to overcome those other things.
Yeah, it's funny we argued about this because what you just stated is exactly how I feel about it. I think he's being perfectly honest about why he's leaving. I just think if the circumstances change, maybe he rethinks some things. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's just like, I don't care. I'm just sad I can't be here. I don't know. I don't know Matthew Baldwin. I take him at his word. His family's been nothing but great for Ohio State, and quite frankly, Matt Baldwin's letter leaving was extremely classy. I mean, extremely classy. You have to respect the young man's wishes, and I do. You and I also discussed. There's some people out there who, for some reason, don't think he should be allowed to transfer, and I don't understand that position. I don't totally agree with all these kids transferring, but I certainly don't believe they shouldn't have the right to transfer.
Did you see me respond? I responded to a comment. Like I saw a couple of people say, well, the timing sucks. It's like, he shouldn't be allowed to transfer right now. And my response was, it's almost the end of the academic year. Isn't that the right time to transfer? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm losing my mind here. It's like, if you're a college student, typically most transfers, I mean, some happen in the middle of the school year, after the first semester, but most transfers, if you're a student, happen at the end of the academic year. Maybe I'm crazy, but why wouldn't you think that transferring at the end of the school year is the best time to do it?
I actually agree with you. As far as, people, when they say it's a bad timing, they're thinking of Ohio State. I get the fanhood in that. But for him personally, now he can take some time, take a breather, make some choices, look at some schools, and see where his best fit is, because he's already, I guess you could say, he's made a mistake as to where he wanted to go to school the first time. They probably learned from some of those mistakes, and they're probably taking the process a little differently this time, and as to where they're going to go. Obviously, he wants to be closer to home. A lot of people think Arkansas is the likely landing spot. We'll see. I'm with you. I wish him the best because I actually think I think he's got the talent to be a very good quarterback. I wish him the best. I wish he were still at Ohio State, but that's not my business. So just best of luck to you, Matthew.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, when you said people are looking at it selfishly from an Ohio State standpoint, and look, hey, everybody here listening is probably Buckeye fans, and there's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with being a little passionate about it. But I do think we all have to take a step back and remember this is their livelihood. They should be a little selfish about this. They should put their own interests ahead of Ohio State's interests in this particular situation, this type of situation. Now, when they're actually playing, when they're out there practicing, and during the season, then yeah, I think you have to be a little unselfish and you have to give it your all to the program. But we're in the off season now. He's got to do what's best for him. And I just wish people would remember that. He should be allowed to transfer. He should be allowed to do what's best for him. This is the time to do it. Not, maybe not in season. In season, hey, I think you got to give your blood, sweat, and tears to the university that you're playing for. But when you're out of season, it's time to reflect and do what's best for you.
Are you ripping on Kelly Bryant with that comment?
Yeah, see, I didn't like that. I don't like the in-season transfer. I really don't. And I personally don't even like mid-season transfers that much, but I definitely don't like in-season transfers. And that's when I think if I'm a Clemson fan, I'm a little upset about that. I thought that I get it. I completely understand from his point of view. He had to transfer when he did because of the eligibility factor. So I get it, but I'm still not keen on the timing of that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It seemed like, okay, you don't want to say he's quitting on the team, but I understand he's got to protect himself in the same respect. It's really a debate that where both sides have a good point. We're just like, okay, yeah, I kind of get that he's got to look out for himself, but man, you just left your team. And remember when Trevor Lawrence went down against Syracuse, it looked pretty dicey for a second. If they had Kelly Bryant, it probably wouldn't have been as dicey. So, and all of a sudden I wouldn't say their playoff hope were in danger because they're going to go to the playoffs regardless, but obviously their season becomes a little less of a safety net. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're undefeated and you're in a big conference, you're going to the playoff. But if you have one loss, who knows? Maybe another team gets in over you.
So Ohio State they have to add a quarterback. And I mean, they don't have to. I mean, there are some people that think Chug is the answer and Chug will make a fine backup quarterback. I think if it gets to that, Ohio State is in trouble, but I'm not trying to degrade Chug. It's just, that's a lot to ask of him.
Man. The Chug fan base is coming after you.
Yeah. Don't at me, please. Don't at me. Not about Chug. But Ohio State presumably is. I mean, Ryan Day has already said that they're going to go look for a quarterback, so that's not controversial. We know
they
that.
Have to just for depth purposes anyway.
Yeah, even if you're a Chug fan and you think Chug can be a capable quarterback and take over the reins if God forbid something happens to Justin Fields. They still need another quarterback anyhow, because like
Where's
you said,
wood? Knock on some wood right now, man.
I'm knocking on the desk for you. It's a wood desk, I promise. Now I'm going to throw a name out here. This is just one of many, and I'm assuming here. My stance is there's no way, but DeAndre Francois. Should we assume there's no way Ohio State would take that risk, given all the off-field stuff that they've been through? I assume there's no way they would look at somebody like this.
There's two things about that. One, I believe he wants to start somewhere, and let's be frank, you're not starting over Justin Fields. Two, yeah, I don't think it can. Even though I think he was found innocent of all those charges, but even just the charges alone, and we're in today's society where it's the nature of the allegation, or it's the seriousness of the allegation, not the nature of the evidence. And as soon as that headline comes up, accused of whatever, Ohio State recruits former troubled quarterback. I don't think he can. Not with the way Ohio State was not the way Ohio State got destroyed in the media last year.
Yeah, I don't think he would. I think you're right. I'm pretty sure he's going to go someplace that he feels like he's got a really, really good chance of starting, and that's definitely not Ohio State. I'm wondering, because of the off-the-field stuff, if there aren't programs out there that ordinarily would have taken him to be the starting quarterback, but maybe they back off a little bit just because of that. And it's a shame that this is where we are in society. I don't feel like allegations alone should make you toxic, especially when you've been cleared of those charges. But that's where we are, and it's unfortunate. I think he should definitely have a second chance, even if he were guilty, and maybe he is, and maybe he's escaped, where he shouldn't have. But even if he is guilty, I still believe in second chances if somebody wants to. But obviously he hasn't been found guilty of anything, so he should get a second chance. But it will be interesting to see if other programs are willing to take that chance, because they haven't so far. We just haven't seen what's going to happen with him. And that's why I was thinking that would be a great opportunity for Ohio State if they could lock a kid like that up. But like you said, that's probably not what he wants.
Yeah, if he was willing to be a backup, I would say, shoot, take him. And then you know what happens? All of a sudden, You get to not have to be as cautious with Fields. You can run your offense as you see fit. Because I'm wondering, since there's like very little depth behind Fields, if we don't have what the coaches consider a solid backup, and again, the Chuck fan base, here they come, do they run the offense a little differently, maybe a little more conservatively with Fields running, whereas one of his strengths maybe gets taken back a little bit because you don't want to put him in harm's way any more than you have to, simply because if he gets hurt, the season's done.
Well, I mean, this discussion, as unpleasant as it is probably a step up and an improvement from the other conversation we were having about Fields. The one, well, is he overrated? He was, 4 of 13 passing in the spring game? So he must be overrated, right?
By the way, Jake Fromm just had a miserable spring game for everybody. So.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, do people, it's not even Ohio State fans, and God bless everybody that follows college football. Everybody's guilty of this. We're all guilty of hot takes, but some more than others. But it's almost like people have forgotten the Dwayne Haskins game. This happens every single season. This is just not only is it a small sample, but it's a small sample in a format that you just can't take seriously. It really doesn't tell us enough. I mean, you can't look. I mean, yeah, you can take into account that it was a bad performance, and I'm not saying that doesn't matter at all, but you can't look at these stats and say, oh, see, this is terrible. It's like those stats are not relevant to stats you would see in an actual game.
You and I were there in person. The physical traits are there. You could see that guy has an NFL arm. Justin Fields has an NFL arm. He can throw the out patterns. He can throw the deep passes. Even his short passes in the middle of the field were actually very sharp. Especially the one to Victor, which should have been a touchdown because he got breathed on. They called it down. He just, I don't know. You saw him in warm-ups, Kyle. He was flicking at 50 yards like it was nothing. It's just, whatever, 50 yards downfield. And you saw the backup quarterback, Baldwin could do it, but the other two kind of had to shot put it, to get it to the other side of the field. He's incredibly athletic. He's more athletic than I thought he was. That long run happened right in front of us at 38-yarder. I remember you said, "There's my QB1." You could see the physical tools. I mean, he could be really special. I just do not care about a guy, a 4 of 13 game from a guy who's been there for a couple months in an offense that even Dwayne Haskins, as smart as we've seen he is on the film, he's been shown broadcasting it on television. He even said this offense is not easy to learn. And you're expecting Fields to have it down in 3 months? I'm not even worried about it. I actually expect Fields to just continue to flourish and get better and better as the season goes on.
Yeah, he's had 15 practices so far at Ohio State. There's still 29 more coming, later on this fall. So he's got plenty of time. There's, another 7 months before fall camp even starts on top of the 29 practices. So there's plenty of time. I would not be worried in the slightest if I'm out there, sweating the situation. Just calm down, relax. Everything will be okay. Justin Fields is going to be a great quarterback. I know there are analysts out there, even the ones, I saw one analyst saying, arguing, or not arguing. He was discussing the whole overrated thing, and he was taking a non-committal stance on, is Justin Fields overrated? But even then, I saw this person, and I'm not going to embarrass him because I don't want to start a war, but I'm just saying, you got to remember, though, he was clearly behind Trevor Lawrence. So whether he's overrated or not, he's not expected to be on that level. And that even right there is revisionist history, because if you go back to the rankings back in the time when Fields and Trevor Lawrence were both coming out, even then, there was a hot debate about who was better. I mean, a lot of people had Fields as the consensus number one. There were other people that had Lawrence, but even now people are acting like, well, it was Lawrence all along. And it's easy to say that because you watch Trevor Lawrence lead Clemson to a national title and you see how he played against Alabama and everybody is in awe of him, and they should be. He's a really good freshman quarterback. But it's just funny how people are letting the recency bias cloud their judgment as to who was better back then and who could turn out to be better. Look, in 2 years from now, Fields could be better than Lawrence. We just don't know.
Yeah, I remember when Tua came in and won the national title. He was the greatest quarterback since,
Yeah.
And then he goes again through what I consider a fairly soft SEC schedule. I'm sorry, I believe it's true. And he lights it up. I mean, when he can go 10 for 10, 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, yes, he obviously is very talented, but that's not just you. You're playing some weak defenses. You have 4- and 5-star guys all around you. But then look what he did. He laid an egg in the championship game. A really big egg for all Easter fans out there. But I all of a sudden Trevor Lawrence now is the kingmaker. And look, Lawrence is great. Don't get me wrong. Tua is very good as well. I've never felt he was great, but I do feel he's very, very good. And we're prisoners of the moment. Johnny says it all the time. We're prisoners of the moment. Just because Fields sat behind a very talented Jake Fromm, who already had a year under his belt, doesn't mean Fields somehow is lacking in talent. Frankly, he's coming into Ohio State, and people are crediting him for 2 quarterbacks leaving. I don't know if that's 100% true or not, but obviously he's had an impact on the quarterback room. But the thing, Kyle, that I was most worried about, not about his personality necessarily, but how would the team receive him coming in out of nowhere and basically saying openly, I want to get to the NFL. And this is why I'm here, because Ryan Day can get me to the NFL. And you see Luther Muhammad's video of them playing basketball together. I had a friend who...
I worry for Justin Psyche after that. Luther tore him apart.
Oh, man. So you took an L today. You'd expect Luther to be able to beat our football team, though, in basketball. And then, of course, you see how in the videos of the new arrangements in the WAC where he's shooting basketball at everybody. You see how he's getting along with everybody. The team seems to have embraced him and received him. And I think that's just the first step to him becoming the leader of the team. Because it takes a while, folks, for a quarterback to completely become the leader. And I think you look at all the videos, and remember him hanging out with friends. I had a friend who apparently met him a couple nights ago, and he was hanging out with a couple of the players. And really great kid, he said. Really down to earth and humble, nice. And I honestly couldn't be more of a fan of Fields right now. And it's actually becoming personal now that people think we should have taken him.
That's a big point right there too, because you can't just walk into a new place and walk into the facilities, around the practice field or the weight room, and you can't just start shouting out orders to your new teammates. They're going to look at you like, who the bleep are you? And they might not even look at you. They might outright say, who the bleep are you? You can't just walk into the room the first week and take control of the room. You have to let it. You have to give it time. There's a maturation and a trust process that happens, and they have to understand that they trust you, that they know you're leading by example and you're doing the right things. And once all that happens and they get to know you, that's when you can naturally start taking advantage and be a leader. And that's why I go back to what happened in basketball last year with Ohio State, with the way Andrew Dockich took over the team by the end of the season. Because, look, this is a walk-on, and not just any walk-on, a walk-on that came to Ohio State from Michigan, of all places. And, Andrew was a natural-born leader, and we saw that. But it took a while because he knew he can't just walk in to the locker room and start ordering people around, even though he's a senior, because he's a walk-on for Michigan. That just doesn't work. But by the end of the year, they trusted him. They saw what he was doing on and off the basketball court, and he was able to assert himself as a leader. That will happen with Justin Fields, but it's going to take time, and it is already starting to happen. I really do believe there's a camaraderie there. I believe they are trusting him now, but it's going to happen more progressively over the course of the summer and fall camp.
Yeah, and you know what? This is going to be a perfect opportunity because he is the guy now. This might be a close QB battle. He is the guy, bar none, no exceptions, and the team knows that. And they're going to go see him out there working, not just in practice sessions, but working with the receivers, working with the offensive line, studying the playbook on his own time, and that's going to further endear him to the rest of the team. And again, it'll take time, but I think you'll see more and more guys start to trust him. I do love the fact we have such a high quality of character on the team that they're already treating him like a brother. And from everything I hear about, maybe you hear differently, you probably hear the same, but the locker room seems pretty tight overall, and they seem like they're very on fire and very fired up very hungry, I should say, for this season to get started.
Yeah, folks, I can promise you, I know there's some panic, there's some uneasiness because of the depth chart and everything. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to tell you that this is a good situation to have where you've got 2 scholarships quarterbacks on the roster and only one of them was actually recruited out of a high school. So you've got one recruited quarterback and another scholarship quarterback. It's not a good situation to have by any stretch of the imagination. But I promise you, Ohio State is very, very happy with what they've seen out of field so far. Yes, he's having some ups and downs. He's not a finished product just yet, but the leadership is there. The physical traits are there. The things that you want to see from him right now are there. It's give him some time to learn the playbook, give him some time to get into the offense. Everything is going to be okay. The sky is not falling. The Ohio State University is still there. I promise. I was just there the other day. It's still in place. It hasn't been hit by a meteor. The stadium is still standing. Ryan Day is still the head coach. Justin Fields is the quarterback. Take a deep breath. Relax. We got 3.5, 4 months now before the season starts. It is going to be just fine.
Yeah. You're exactly right. I'm not actually panicked at all. I have that much faith. And folks, for those who are complaining about the quarterback depth situation, I hate to break this to you. We covered a little bit earlier, but like Kyle said, with Clemson, Alabama, and Georgia, and it's for Ohio State, it's also an elite program. Elite programs are just going to have to learn to adapt to the fact that backups who want to play are going to leave.
This is the new reality. This is life as a blue blood football program now. You're going to have to get used to it. The rules the way they are now, with the culture the way it is. This is going to be a new. This is going to be the status quo for major programs. You're going to have to work hard to hang on to backup quarterbacks. That's the way it is now. You got to get used to it. It's not just an Ohio State problem. As I said earlier, Clemson, Georgia, Bama, basically the who's who of the best programs in the country is having to deal with this right now. Michigan's not having to deal with it, but Michigan is Michigan. And as I said, the best of the best. So I said that for a reason.
Yeah, nobody's transferring from Michigan. Maybe nobody wants them. I don't know.
Yeah, no, nobody cares enough to leave. They actually
by Harbaugh?
They're probably going to lose a couple quarterbacks here soon anyway too. So they're probably going to be dealing with it as well. But they haven't had to deal with it so far. So I want to switch gears. Hey, Corey, you got your wish. You were on the Ibrahima Diallo train for last couple months, wanting Ohio State to pick him up as a commitment. And after a lot of speculation and anticipation that he would commit to Ohio State, the 7-footer from originally from Senegal, but now plays at Prolific Prep in California. He did give his commitment last week to Ohio State. Chris Holtmann in his press release was very guarded about the current expectations, but he was also quick to point out that they really love his potential and his future. But really, I think Ohio State fans are just hoping, and I know this is your biggest hope, is that he just becomes a solid rebounder and rim protector here in year number 1 at Ohio State.
Yeah, and apparently Ohio State's still looking around for somebody in a grad transfer, so it's possible they still feel like he needs the redshirt. But that being said, yeah, if he has to play, that's what if I were the coaching staff, now granted, thank God I'm not, because we have a very talented coaching staff, but I just, look, when Caleb's not in there and you're in there, I need you to guard the rim from them driving on us. I need you to body people up down low, and please just get him some rebounds. And if you can, get some offensive rebounds and putbacks. And when you put it back, I want you to slam it hard, because that's what he can do. If you saw his high school film, he could put it back up and just crush the rim. And that's what I would ask out of him. Maybe eventually you could teach him to pick and roll. He'd be dangerous on lobs and things like that. But yeah, you're so athletic. You're big. I don't know when's the last time we had an actual 7-footer. It can't be Odin, can it? Was there somebody else? But just go out on the court, get rebounds, play good defense, and that is. It's not sexy, but it's vitally important.
I think I would say, well, B.J. Mullins would have been the last one. B.J. and B.J.
He was forgettable.
Yeah, B.J. and Costa Koufos right before him.
Koufos, he was a different kind of 7-footer, but yeah.
Yeah, he's a Euro big, but he's still playing in the NBA, so kudos to him. I know he's dead to Ohio State, and Ohio State's dead to him, but that is a relationship that did not end well. But
well, yeah.
And I will remind people with Diallo, he's a kid that he's got enormous potential. He's got athleticism. He's got like a 7'6" wingspan, I think. Long arms.
7'9", I read.
7'9", I think it is. Pretty athletic for a big. He's got all the potential in the world, but he is very raw because he's only been playing basketball for a few years. So it is going to be, I think, in an ideal world, if you're Ohio State, you would like to find a grad transfer big and then redshirt Diallo, give him a year of development and practice, and work. He'll be able to practice against Weston and the grad transfer if they get one. And then you have him come back next year as a redshirt freshman, and then he'd be backing up, Caleb next year. But obviously, we don't always live in an ideal world, so Ohio State may or may not get a grad transfer, and even if they do, it may not be a grad transfer center. So it'll be interesting to see. Ohio State seems to be looking at a bunch of different positions. They're not just looking at a big; they're looking at wing. They're looking at a 4. I think they're looking at this as if we'll take a grad transfer if the right one presents itself to us, and if it's a guy that we think is going to contribute. If not, they're not going to take one just for the sake of taking one.
Yeah, and I think they would like to add one simply because this is a year, and Holtman's not stupid. He knows there's expectations, and you don't want to have to try to just rely on the youth. You want to be able to rely on senior leadership and bring a guy in who's been around the block. Maybe not with the potential of a Gaffney, Liddell, or a Carton, but somebody who can come in and contribute intelligent minutes to the team right away. Because you've seen. Granted, I know the Dukes and the Kentuckys of the world rely on young players all the time, but I don't think Ohio State's in a position where they want to become that. And we don't have a lot of. I mean, what is Andre West? I think the only senior net going into next year. So I can't think of the roster off the top of my head, but it's just you don't want to rely on that much youth. I think they probably want to bring in somebody who has a little bit of age on them.
Well, and it's like the point guard situation. I saw you doing your best to get people hyped up about the point guard, DJ Carton, for next year. Asking
people put me out of context. I was just suggesting he's our next elite guard. I know him and Ruffalo are not the exact same player.
No, I knew what you meant. Not everybody did. But the great thing about this, and there are people that are probably getting their expectations, at least for next year, not necessarily beyond, but at least for next year, there are probably people that have too high of expectations for DJ Carton. I think he's going to be a great player right away. Don't get me wrong. I think he will produce. He's going to be a great scorer. He's going to be a good passer. I think that he's not necessarily going to be the savior right away, just have some tempered enthusiasm. But the great thing about this is they don't necessarily need him to be, one of the best players in the country right away, because they do have CJ Walker. He's going to be an experienced point guard, that he's not as flashy, he's not as talented as Carton, but he'll be able to give them very, very good minutes offensively and defensively. So I think that takes the burden off of Carton from having to do too much right away.
Absolutely. I apologize. I always forget about Walker, and I don't mean it as disrespect. I know he's a good player, but it's hard when the guy didn't play or really do anything. You didn't really see him on the bench very often. I know he was there, but they didn't pan on him too often. So it's just, you kind of forget that he transferred. But that's a great point. I talk about senior leadership. He's going to be a redshirt junior, and he's going to have a year in the program, so he knows the culture. He's going to be vital, actually, for leadership purposes. That's good foresight by Holtman to bring in C.J. Walker and to understand that we need to upgrade the guard position. And I hate saying that because I don't want to disrespect Jackson Wood for their contributions. I mean, I know we were all frustrated with them at times, but they gave us everything they had. Like JT Barrett, they gave us everything they had.
You're going from 0 true point guards, 2 combos and Jackson and Woods to 2 true point guards. It really is. It's a nice luxury because it's going to be a whole different feel, because that most important position, the table setting position, point guard distribution and getting guys in the right spot and hitting them in stride and getting to the open man on the wings. All that stuff is going to be there next year, because you're going to have 2 guys that make the right reads, make the right passes, deliver the ball on time and on target, and we're going to be able to score a little bit on their own, which is a nice luxury.
Yeah, I definitely am looking forward to having 2 ball handlers back there. Again, Jackson and Woods are, I think, really good role players, but you had to count on them to be more stars. And I think Carton and Walker are more so along the lines of I don't know if Carton will be a star. I don't know about Walker yet. I think he'll be very, very good, very well received by the fan base. But at the same time, two guys that can drive the lane themselves, that'll be a welcome addition, because that's one of my complaints of not last couple of years, because I think we had that Holman's first year, but last year especially was like, gosh, nobody can get to the rim, on their own. It's a little frustrating at times.
The other bit of basketball news we had here this week, Diebler is coming back to town. No, not that Diebler, but close. His brother, Jake. Jake Diebler has been hired as the assistant coach, the third assistant for Ohio State, replacing Mike Schrage, who took over at the head coaching position at Elon. Jake, look, I know people, I'm curious your take on this. People don't know a lot about his career, but, he played with John. He was a year older. He went to Valpo and played basketball under Homer Drew, was a very good basketball player there. Not as talented as John was, but a very savvy kid, always gave max hustle, very likable. And he's a great basketball mind, like his dad and his brother. And, he came to Ohio State, was a video coordinator there for a couple years under Thad Matta, and then he got his coaching career started. Recently, he had been an assistant coach at Vanderbilt for Bryce Drew, the son of Homer. And when Bryce got fired here this spring, Jake was on the unemployment line, and Ohio State snatched him up, having gotten great feedback from Thad on his work ethic and everything. So Chris Holtmann hiring Jake Diebler. Curious, Corey, your take on this?
Well, first and foremost, I like the idea that Holtmann and Thad still talk about these things. I mean, there's no bad blood between the two, which is good. But I like the hire. I liked it even from the beginning, before I knew that he'd helped secure 2 5-star recruits for Vanderbilt. I mean, so you see the recruiting ability right away. And obviously the Diebler family, really good basketball minds. I don't understand why anybody would have a complaint about it. I think it's a smart hire. Not to mention, like you said, a guy who knows the state as well. So, yeah, bring him on. I'm extremely excited about it. I mean, I hate losing Schrage. Schrage's a great coach, but you got to respect him taking the opportunity. And I think in a few years' time, you're going to see Ryan Peden take an opportunity. You're going to see probably Terry Johnson at some point. I mean, I think you want guys who want to be head coaches eventually, and I think Diebler is a guy you could see down the road becoming a head coach.
Hey, why I'm thinking about it, congratulations to John Diebler, by the way, who announced on his Twitter account a couple days ago that he and his wife are having a baby boy and a baby girl. So congratulations to the Dieblers for the new addition to the Diebler family. Maybe that boy in 18 years from now, who knows, could be the next Buckeye great.
I think his first words need to be, "I'm committing to Ohio State."
Hopefully he'll have that kid shooting as well as he did. Then we could have the two highest Dieblers in Big Ten history being number 1 and number 2 in 3-point shooting. But
and Holtmann in his 60s will be recruiting Diebler's son.
Chris will tell you he's got enough gray hairs already. He doesn't need to worry about gray hairs that many years down the road. So. Well,
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but like you said, Ohio State basketball, I think is in great shape. I think Jake Diebler is going to be killing it out there, getting back to Ohio. He's already had some established roots. People know him. I think this is going to be a great hire, and who knows? Ryan Peden might be next to take a job. Doesn't look like it's going to be this year, but I imagine it's going to be in the next year or two. So it's going to be up to Jake Diebler, I think, to get himself back in the Ohio recruiting circles, and will be the numero uno assistant, I think, for years to come, if in fact Peden does take off.
Yeah, and like you said, I think it further strengthens Ohio State basketball. We can legitimately start to claim we're I don't know, maybe we're not just Nick Cronin left Cincinnati. We can legitimately start to claim we're probably the best program in Ohio finally. Again, like going back to Thad's glory years. But, it's just, I'm happy about it. I trust Holtmann. I think he's made so many good moves since he's gotten here. I'm not saying he's perfect. No coach is perfect, because the minute you say something like that, well, what about, it's okay. Yeah, I get it. But he's right more than he's wrong, in my opinion. And Ohio State basketball the future is just in such great shape. You see all these kids coming in. I was so happy to get Diallo, like you said. That's a top 10 class and a number 1 rated Big Ten class. I think that's 2 years in a row he had a number 1 rated Big Ten class, or were we number 2 to Michigan State?
Yeah, I believe it was technically 2 years in a row.
Wow, so he's already recruiting gangbusters, and he's just getting started. He got hired extremely late. to Ohio State in that year in June. So, you know what? The future of Ohio State basketball is in good shape, man, and it's going to be fun to watch. I love Ohio State football more than anything, but I do love having a great basketball program to watch, into April.
He is Corey Thompson. He is the co-host of the Scarlet and Great podcast along with Johnny Lunsford. Be sure to check them both out. They are here on the Unscripted Ohio Network every Wednesday. You can catch Corey on Twitter. God forbid if you want to. I'm just warning you ahead of time before you venture over there. But you can follow him on Scarlet Great CT. And Johnny, by the way, is Scarlet Great JL. I know that's a big differentiation there, but like I said, you can catch the Scarlet Great podcast every Wednesday. Corey, next time, if you make it up for fall, like I said, make sure you bring a quarterback with you from the state of Florida.
Do you really look at the quarterback depth charts at Florida, Florida State, Miami? Do you really want any of them?
I can tell you there's been there, done that going on with the Miami roster.
And the Florida roster.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're right. Emory Jones is the current backup on the Florida roster, although supposedly he's had a great spring. But again, I'm not sure how much that really means. So
I'll tell you what, I'll bring up Alex Hornibrook from FSU. Well,
there you go. That'd be an acceptable one. That would actually be a perfect backup for what Ohio State needs right now. But hey, beggars can't be choosy. They need to get one. I'm sure they'll get one wrapped up here in the next couple weeks, and we will certainly talk about it here on the Unscripted Ohio podcast. That's going to do it for Corey and I today. Thanks for listening. Of course, you can catch me on Twitter at KYLam8. You can catch the show every Monday and Friday on BuckeyeGrove.com. We are also on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. That's going to do it for me. I'll be back on Friday. Corey will be back on Wednesday. Hope everybody has a great week. Go Bucks.
You can get new episodes of Unscripted Ohio on Mondays and Fridays exclusively at BuckeyeGrove.com or anytime on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all things Ohio State.